Can't hear you. Can't hear you.
Oh, great. I'm talking to myself.
Yeah.
Oh, that was just a test to see who's paying attention. Well, I'll repeat by saying hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and ladies, gentlemen, and everyone else that has been kind enough to join us here. I am Lubna Dajani, and I will be your host and moderator for this session. And I'm very, very grateful to be amongst my beautiful and brilliant panelists here. A little bit about me. I'm by training and background, a systems analyst and designer. My passion is bringing out innovations in STEAM, game mechanics, design thinking to apply to solve the world's greatest problems and that we have created mostly. And with that, rather than talking about myself, which everybody knows is my least favorite thing to talk about, I am going to pass it to, and I'm going to ask everybody to please introduce yourself, keep it to a couple of minutes, and I will and just hand it over to the next person. So since I'm going to pick on you, Eppolito, since you're our sitting in the middle of my screen,
I'm surrounded by greatness.
I said, yes, you are.
My name's Hipólito. I'm a molecular biologist by trade, medical XR technologist by passion. I've been in the space for over four to 5 years now, working at the cross-section of augmented reality, AI, and laboratory training. I am a co-founder of AugLab. It's an AR AI software interface for laboratory production. Really excited to be here. Honored.
Thank you. Okay, I will pick. Claire, please.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Claire Weingarten. I'm the founder of Living Machines Media, which is a consultancy working with creators, business owners, startups, journalists on XR and emerging tech projects. I'm really happy to be part of this panel today about AI and ethics, because ethics are very important to me and my work. And I'm glad that this is part of the conversation from early on in the days of XR becoming mainstream and spatial computing in the metaverse, because I saw the panel earlier, Dr. Furness talking about how this wasn't part of the conversation with social media. And, you know, it just wasn't on our minds. And now it's become such a problem. So let's have ethics, privacy, respect for humanity built in as part of the conversation of XR, you know, at this point. So it's always front of mind as we're creating projects and products.
Thank you so much, Claire. And I didn't mention in my introduction, but I contribute much of my time to several IEEE standards, whether it's for the ethical use of Metaverse or one standard that is upcoming very, very soon in the spring is the IEEE 7014, which is about empathy, emulated empathy. So machines can emulate empathy and affect empathy and how you feel. So thank you for bringing that up. And we will weave that in for sure here. And I invite all of you to check out 7014. Tess.
Hi, I'm Tess McKinney, and I'm super excited to be here. I'm the CEO of X Renegades. What we do is we help colleges and universities implement XR labs, mostly in healthcare and education. And we're building some projects on AI in, application, VR, virtual reality applications, with diversity and emotion and empathy, and utilizing it to, I use it every day for, note taking. And I mean, all the things that you can do with AI right now it's just exploding. And we definitely need to have a way to kind of focus those areas so it just doesn't explode and not have any governance or anything. So I'm very excited to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. Lizzie?
Hi, everyone. I'm just a publicist. You know, if you have a project in XR and want to get some eyes on it, you call me. And that's all I do. It's all I've been doing for about 9 years now. And that's it. That's it.
That is perfect. I mean, if a tree falls and nobody knows about it, did it fall, right?
Did it fall? Exactly. Exactly. You know, what's interesting is so many XR projects are scared of controversy. And controversy is really, really important to ruffle feathers, to maybe say something that might be a little bit, that kind of stuff really, really makes an impact. And XR needs to get a little bit spicier to really get into the mainstream and have people pay attention. So if a tree falls, nobody hears it, didn't fall at all. So
that's right. So I'm going to count on you, Lizzie, for the controversy on this panel, because I really like that. Dana?
Yes. Hi, my name is Dana Maria Varneke. I'm from the Netherlands, and I'm the founder of Captain VR. And our mission is to develop XR and digital health tools to empower people to empower them to learn, practice, and develop in a safe environment. We're currently building the Captain app. That's an AI tool for avatar coaching that provides 24/7 guidance and support on your smartphone, and to prevent burnout, stress management, and to stimulate purpose in life.
Wow. I love this, from molecular to brand to publicist and to health, education. And I know Debbie is very passionate so about impact. So yeah. Debbie, please.
Okay, thank you so much, Lubna. And thank you everyone else for being on this panel. I'm super excited to talk to everyone. I am extremely passionate about this as a creative technologist, educator, and performer. About me, I work primarily with education and entertainment as a CEO of my company, Orion Digital Inc. That name came to me from kind of esoteric sources because I realized that XR is very closely linked to our biogeometric and metaphysical world. So being a woman of color, ethics was endemic to me studying XR because I knew that we needed a seat at the table, not because humanity doesn't need unity, but because if we don't do it, this emergence has the ability to go in negative trajectories as well as positive. So I wanted to make sure that all voices were at the table in a way that had agency, and drawing from ancient practices has actually created a very unique bridge between our current world and what our ancestors already knew. So I've been diving into that.
Indeed. I can't wait to talk to you beyond this panel. We have no idea.
We'll talk.
Oh, hells yeah. Well, Matt, since we so delighted to have you join us.
Hey, thank you so much. Hey, everybody. It's great to be here. I am so excited to be part of this group. In 2016, I joined a VR AR company where we rebuilt ancient Jerusalem as it was 2,000 years ago. And you could imagine the fights in our office between religious leaders of all different sects, archaeologists, and it has been an amazing experience. From there, we went on to do different projects for like McDonald's, Kellogg's, Walmart. And then one of my favorite projects we did, since I grew up with asthma, we did asthma empathy training. So we actually did a simulation where you can experience what somebody living with asthma goes through. And you go through this house of triggers, and at the end you either make it or you don't. And but it's a really interesting project, and as we've done testing, we have been seeing that those without asthma have an empathy response. Those with asthma have a trauma response. So we have a little work to do to figure out like what's the best way that we can move forward and help people with asthma and other conditions. So that's my work, my life in XR. And then last year, last ski season, I'm here in Salt Lake City. We launched AI Revolution Labs. So we are an AI consultancy for business performance on our consultancy side. And then we have a lab where we actually build out really cool AI projects. We have a bunch of people who do LLM training, machine learning, like you name it. It's a really great group of people, and we're excited to frame the future of what's possible as we merge XR with AI, and do it in a really, really interesting way where we try to find the positive, we try to find the good, and we try to promote that through our company.
Wow. Ancient Jerusalem, I have to say, I was born in the old city of Jerusalem, so I'm dying to see if you still have.
Oh, you're gonna love it. You're gonna love it.
And I think that is, a phenomenal use case of something like XR, because and just the whole immersive experiences that could help us bridge us and take us backwards and forward and get to know each other, and that the whole. I'm also very curious about the empathy versus the trauma response, but we can have a whole session on that. The other day, someone says to me, somebody who is very involved in the metaverse, and she says, "Oh well, now everybody thinks that AI, killed the metaverse star. Remember? Well, we may not. Well, some of you may remember. Video killed the radio star." But I think we all agree that the technology is really a stack, and when you bring these innovations together, what is very powerful, I think, about bringing XR or the immersive experiences together with AI is the magnitude of the power and influence that it can have on us. And indeed, the technology is simply a tool, and however, it is a tool that magnifies what is within. And we talk a lot about ethics in AI, especially and in metaverse and human generated data and ethical use of it. But it's really what whose ethics are we talking about, and what are we amplifying in ourselves? I would love to ask you all to share your thoughts on that, and how the emergence of, we've had AI. I worked on early AI like over 30 years ago. And metaverse or immersive types of technologies have been around for quite a while. But how do you find AI and metaverse technologies have influenced, helped, or changed your fields, and what are the most challenges? And you can just, whoever wants to go first. Otherwise, I will pick on.
I can jump in for a moment. My area is working with a lot of creators, and my background is in film, TV, journalism. So helping to make a lot of this media, kind of entertainment or journalism, accessible to audience so that it becomes more participatory and interactive as opposed to just a lean back experience. So one of the projects I'm working on right now that I'm very excited about is creating a kind of virtual world screening of a film that was made. So it's an interactive film that's going to be screened in a virtual world. I can't talk too much about it, but we're using AI to really help build out some of the characters and help build out some of the environments, because AI just allows things to scale in a virtual world like nothing else. All of a sudden, non-playable characters have, using artificial intelligence, are able to hold conversations, are able to, have their own identities. But even more so, as content is moving through the space, environments are able to react, and you're able to just create kind of a mountain of content that can be very artistic and supplementary to art projects that wasn't previously available. That's pretty niche. I know everyone else has different specialties, but that's just a really fun way that I'm able to use it in my work right now.
Nice. Can I go next?
Yes, okay.
Yeah, so for me, what the metaverse was, and it started in 2018, 19. No, yeah, 18. I started giving workshops in Altspace VR. We called it in VR at the time. I did it with educators in VR. And since the pandemic, when the pandemic started, we gave workshops every week, and we gave workshops on stress management. And the impact of that was that many people were locked down, sitting at their homes, didn't have any social interaction outside a home, could now come together in a virtual space in the metaverse to join forces, to listen to other people's stories, frustrations, anger, and also people from all over the world. And it connected everybody. Everybody felt like they are in the same boat, and it felt like we really won. And it was such an amazing experience that the metaverse could do that for us. So it impacted my work very positively. From there on, when AI started, we were already doing market research in 2020 about AI, how to use it for personalized health and coaching. And when the AI ChatGPT started, we could, develop on that. So we didn't have to develop our own AIs anymore. So that was really promising and beneficial for our work. So we are really happy with the course of this. We think it's very positive, AI and the metaverse. But I can imagine some people would disagree. I'm interested to hear if there's people here at the table.
I could probably go next. I won't say I'll disagree, because like I'm technologist at the end of the day, so I love technology. I see the value. And to give you the background, I got into the metaverse because I'm a theater creator. So of course, when COVID happened, we couldn't converge and we couldn't do our conferences and have our shows. So it made sense that the virtual world allowed us to be in 3D format together while in a safe environment. So when we did the Nefertiti experience, which is a hybrid Afrofuturistic theater production, I said, okay, here's an amazing potential to gather and actually show this futuristic vision with low overheads and all the values that VR has to offer, not to mention the fact that it's global. So I see it as a unification tool more than anything. But because I think kind of like very zoomed out in the trajectory, and I've also been studying who is behind making the machine. So if you look at the top 10 VR companies or tech companies, they're all, let's say, huge oligarchs. They're not super diverse. They don't have a lot of, let's say, female presence. So I think if these are the folks who are kind of creating the code for our like 3D existence, which statistically has a huge psychological impact on our experience, what does that imply for our future? So that's when my work started transforming from just seeing the superficial benefits to going deeper into the greater conversations around who owns humanity in the tech spectrum. I'll leave it there for now. But just
Yes.
critical analysis, that's all it is, because you look at the stats and the numbers don't lie. So yeah.
Yeah, I often say, whose ethics are we talking about? And we all have different perspectives, and not just ethical values, but also cultural differences. And never mind, society itself has not been so inclusive nor accessible, or fairly or equally accessible to all. But we're going to end up, by the end of this panel, I think we all may have need Lizzie's help in getting out. but yeah, so did you want to I mean, I don't, I have so much to say about this particular topic, whether it's in terms of accessibility, inclusion, or personal health, because this AI is way beyond generative AI. And I think health itself as a field needs to quit being driven by pharma and by standard of care and by liability first, or protecting your liability, and more about being human-centric and personal care and about the well-being of everybody. But whether Matt or Ippolito, if you, either one of you would want to comment on that.
Yeah, thank you everybody, by the way. I love where you're headed in this conversation. So we have the opportunity every week, month to go through a bunch of different companies. We're the ones who go in there and probably automate like 5 to 50% of the workflow. And some people would mock us, say like, hey, you're ruining jobs, you're taking things away. But at the same time, there's a lot of AI jobs that we can't fill, and we're just shifting people from one job to another to be like an AI champion from their department, etc. And what we've seen in the process of doing that, and the process of doing research in AI for the last year and a little bit, is we find that it really comes down to the individual. Like if somebody wanted to do something malicious, they could, or they could do something good. So what we've concluded, or what I've concluded, is that I believe discernment is the greatest tool for the future. And what I mean by that is sometimes it's like a mental discernment, sometimes it's like a gut feeling discernment, and sometimes it's spiritual discernment if you look at all the major religions out there. And I believe that as we go forward, it's going to be really put on the individual, the team, the company, to really set these standards and use discernment to know like how are we going to navigate the craziness. Like we haven't seen anything yet with the elections coming up in the US later this fall. And we're going to see a lot of those things where even as an individual, when we see a picture of Trump and Biden hanging out together at a farmer's market, which you guys have probably seen that one, we're going to be like, hey, is this real or not? We've seen like robocalls from different candidates already. So as we go forward, I think there's a lot to say about how do we change the world from the top down. I think we need to change it from the bottom up and put discernment at the forefront of all of our thoughts when we're forced to make decisions that could affect humanity or a group of people, or even our small team in an office, you know.
Yeah, and yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm just kind of to that point, you know, I think a lot of just the general public does not understand, you know, they see it as a hot button word. AI is, you know, a lot of people have misjudgments about it, and they have no idea really what it means or what it looks like. Well, we're all in this space and we understand it, and we have somewhat of a robust, you know, understanding of what exactly it could be. Or, you know, I have teachers all the time who tell me, oh, AI is this new thing. Well, it's not. They just aren't realizing it. You know, they aren't realizing that like Google and, you know, and people have been utilizing it for years upon decades. They just don't quite understand that. So to Matt's point, you know, starting from the bottom up is the way to go. Being able to like use like Lizzie and Claire and, you know, explain to the numerous just I guess random people, you know, kind of what it is. I think that's probably the hardest thing for me, is sometimes to explain, okay, well, yeah, they are utilizing it in political campaigns, and people just don't get that. They're like, oh, well, they hung out together. No, that's just not how this works. You know, it's someone who has like a digital face, and they are using it to be malicious. But then, and that sways massive votes, you know, in our country, not to in all countries. Because for example, like I know people were utilizing AI to change like information that came out about, you know, the Russian and Ukraine war, or the war in Israel. I mean, there's just a lot of things out there that people aren't trusting, or they are trusting and they shouldn't be. So I think there's you know, a giant misconception about what AI is and how we can, you know, change the way that people are listening, with some of the mass media or whatever, and getting that kind of robust out there. But in my world, healthcare, It's a scary, very scary thing right now. And people are like, oh, this is a new thing. And I'm like, it's not a new thing. We've been utilizing it for a very long time. Or it shouldn't be a new thing in that healthcare system. I think there are ways that doctors can utilize it and nurses can utilize it. I think they're so worried about patient data and patient issues and having that, kind of robust issues, that we are missing the point of what it could help us with. It could help us be that extra brain on a case, be able to visualize something for a patient that they may not understand because you're talking in doctor language, you're not talking in, or medical language, you're not talking in commonplace knowledge. So I think that is where I see it going, and it needs to be helped for the common man.
Data privacy and the use of patient data per se is really, really important. But as you were just describing, I can imagine how wonderful it would be. And Lito, prepare yourself. I need you to get in here. Imagine how amazing it would be for a doctor to be able to go through that experience with a patient through a metaverse experience, where you can actually, an immersive experience where you can see what is happening and what is being done, and you can actually get to learn the things that seem so complex on paper and in textbooks, that you can actually experience your what's happening within, and how the technology. These are amazing applications for the technology, but it can also be very invasive, and it can sway us from, especially with empathy, because empathy without compassion is a dangerous weapon.
Right.
But Debbie, you wanted to say something, and then I would love to hear from you, in terms of, as a molecular biologist. I mean, like, wow.
I will try to be very brief, but just speaking from the bottom down, because I really liked what I believe that's Mark was saying. I really believe in that discernment is key. Something, and also what Tess was saying, but something I want us to really examine is the power dynamics. One, who has access to even being at the table? Who has access to discernment? If you don't even have hardware or software education because of certain types of barriers, and I'm not trying to proliferate issues of isms and schisms that exist in society, but I live in the reality where when I am in rooms with people in tech, I'm literally one of few people of color. So then I just kind of look at that in a macro spectrum and say that, as you said, Lubna, without the element of empathy, it's really hard to identify what certain concerns can be. So if we're not represented, for example, or inclusive, then this idea of discernment is it can still be skewed. And this is why I think there needs to be a real proactive effort to have diverse voices in a tangible way that is not even just seated at the table, that we are creating the technology itself, which I think we often bypass, is that benign nature of, hey, it exists, so let's just use it. But let's look at who is actually creating and scripting the technology. Because I'd like to paint a very likely scenario, because I work in gaming. AI has gotten to the point where we can create procedural worlds, entire worlds that are based on someone's script that just go on infinitely. Meta is doing this with Build-A-Bot. And imagine that script is underwritten with certain subtexts, that we are not even necessarily cognitive of, but we just exist in, because as generations evolve, AI will just become so commonplace that we may not even remember what natural intelligence is in the same way. We'll have a heavy reliance on it. Pardon me, I have a frog, but in my throat. But I'll leave it there. I'm just saying my main critical analysis in it is not to stir controversy just for controversy's sake. It's lived experience. I'm trying to be the voice for in my community.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I would also like to react to that, but maybe you wanted to give Lisa the turn, yes? Did I understand, Lubna?
I had asked Hippolyta to say, because I would like to hear from you.
Sure,
Uh,
sure, definitely.
and just specifically, just to link it to the diversity and inclusion, because the technology can further expand the divide rather than bring us together, because it is magnifying what's within. So, but at a molecular level, talk to me.
On a molecular level, we have to completely reinvent. No, I'm just kidding. So, I think when it comes to representation, it comes to the communication. I think Tess spoke to it in healthcare. You've had these hurdles all the time. I mean, there's been changes of technology. Doctors fear it. I mean, the latest one is doctors using next generation sequencing for personalized medicine. If a doctor's been using something for a decade or two, it's going to be very difficult to convince that doctor to use something else. Just the fear of change is sometimes debilitating. So when we're in a space like mine that is advancing technology faster than we can even ask a hypothesis or create a question, it becomes difficult for the user to actually keep up. And especially to Debbie's point, when it comes to someone like me, Afro-Latino, in the sciences and being underrepresented in that space. When it comes to accessibility, I think AI has the potential to help us to ask the right questions, though. So if you think about the training, the education,
I think we've lost your audio.
So our education system, I'm not, God bless them. They've done well to raise up really brilliant minds. They have, but it's a rigid system that is often referred to as like.
Oh, we've lost him, but
Se perdió. You know what's interesting? Oh, there you go. What? Yay, Polito, regresó.
Sorry.
We're coming back.
Sorry, I'm back. Yeah, no, I'm just talking about the raising up and the training of scientists themselves, and how that is actually sometimes limiting when we're trying to fit a person, an individual, into a mold. What AI and augmented reality, especially, I'll just plug augmented, AugLab here. When you open up the space to creativity, now the commodity is plasticity. Now the commodity is now the creativity that a person is bringing into the lab to ask a question that's never ever been asked before, and a question that actually has been held by an individual for fear of ridicule, for fear of this is way too advanced for me. These machines are advancing faster than I can keep up. Now what AI is allowing us to do, not just expand or augment ourselves, it's actually to clear the fog and focus on the right things, which is representation in the laboratory. And what does the laboratory produce? It produces solutions, cures for humanity. So like when I heard, I don't want to stir, again, we're trying not to stir the pot.
No, stir the pot.
So when it comes to big pharma, yeah, we can villainize them, but what is more humane than treating a group of people, an intended impacted population, for COVID-19? We saw it. And we saw that development didn't just happen within the time frame of the pandemic. That was years and years and decades of research and development that happened before. So I think, did I lose you guys again?
Almost.
So I think that it's breaking down misconceptions. I think the potential for AI, augmented reality, and this emerging technology in the metaverse is to really bridge the gaps of understanding in all fields, in education, in healthcare, in the laboratory setting, in film, in trying to create a voice for the people that might not have had one, and being able to lift them up in a way that's impactful, in a way that's actually articulate, in a way that has never ever been spoken of before. So I could, we could break down the molecular, visualizations and understanding the models and VR being used today, and especially my company Oglab. But really, it's about accessibility. Really, it's about creating a possibility for discovery on an individual level. And that really is the commodity that's been forever in science. Might not have been recognized, but plasticity, creativity, openness, that is truly what drives discovery, both in the lab and in our world. So,
Yes.
thanks. Yeah.
Claire and Lizzie, how do we then take, this very powerful enabler that we have, and a very magnifier of artistic capabilities, because maybe not all of us are capable of expressing ourselves in as an artist, but the technology now can help you visualize what is in your head. But how do we communicate this? How do we educate? How do we make that mindset shift? Because this is all about creating a mindset shift in humanity. And Dana, Maria, you also work on the psychology of it, because this is all about, I think, shifting mindsets and holding our leaders accountable to an ethical, a new ethical foundation, where profitability is not the primary driver, but rather well-being, socioeconomic and environmental well-being, human dignity. Can you, what do we do? How do we consult? How do we, as publicists, drive that shift? Because we're creating standards, but who cares if no one adopts them? So how do we do this?
Are you talking now to me? Yes,
I'm talking to you, to Claire, to Lizzie. How are we
to everybody? So if I can talk about this, because I believe it's all in the mindset. We are our biggest enemy and our biggest power, and I think the real change needs to be there, and that is also bottom up, but also maybe up from the leadership point of view. We are creating games, experiences to help people to get better in leadership and make better decisions. But also the data protection regulations are really important in this case. For example, personal and emotional data that we use, for example, in our app, to take care of that, to handle that with care, to follow the rules in that is really important, especially when it comes down to emotional data, sensitive data. So to get the consensus of the people to which data is used and how to give that back to the community or the society, and how we can be sure that the wrong people, like maybe employers that want to know how their employees are behaving, or how healthy they are at the workspace. That's really important, that is regulated, and that it's really clear and for everybody, for especially the user. And we are here to set these rules and to also talk about these things. It's really important, because in Holland, for example, there's the AI Act, and that's not even really there yet. So the AI Act is something that still is building up on. So nobody knows exactly what are the rules and where to go to when you have these questions. Of course, we have a TNO, a research company that we can ask questions to, but it's still all in the foundation, or in the child's shoes. We say that in Holland.
Yes.
But I think it's really important, these topics, and it's not superficial to talk about health and personalized guidance and support, I think, for people. I think that's really important, and a really big chance we have now for the community to do that with AI. So I'm really happy to be part of it.
And I had something I was curious to say, but Lizzie, I don't think you've had a chance to speak yet. So I'm not sure if you want to weigh in on some of this before I...
It's Lizzie.
Oh, Lizzie, I'm sorry. I mean, you and I have met before. I should have known that. I'm so sorry. Lizzie.
No, it's all good. Ultimately, AI is going to make our lives easier. It's going to give us a lot more free time. Ironically enough, something that seems so outside of our humanity is going to help us become more human. With more time on our hands, we'll be able to enjoy nature more. We'll be able to enjoy each other's company more. There's going to be a real return to humanity in the long run. So, we could sit here and talk about, the dangers of this. There's always going to be a danger with things that are, like people had these same conversations when the car became the car and the electricity became electricity, et cetera, et cetera. But having more of a life to live is really where it's going to be at.
Yes. So, but how do we get to that? Because we even in our language, that's what I'm getting to you, right? I mean,
always talk about it. Always get out there. Always. This is one of the reasons I'm doing this to begin with.
Yes, and it's that mindset shift, because here we are talking about the future of work rather than even talking about the future of the worker. We're let me not get that carried away here, but about my views on that. The technology can, yes, do exactly that, but if we forget that is what it's, we're not living to work, but we're working to live. So how do we change that mindset? And for us to change we have to empower the bottom so that the bottom can remember that they are the ones that are driving the top. Otherwise, we are, going to be, selectively.
Well, we kind of saw that with social media, didn't we? We saw, the corporate overlords really harness the power of your attention.
And manipulate your feelings, and that's what's really scary about this stuff, because it's not just because it's great to whatever, but in fact, because we can put a thought in your head and you think it's your own thought when it, so I'm past worrying about this freedom of speech, which we've already kind of losing it these days, but it's the freedom of private thought. Claire, can you wait?
Well, let's see. I was thinking about a couple other things. I think they're relevant here. But when, talking about communication, talking about humanizing this technology and how it can serve humans and how, it can make our lives better. Like what I was thinking about was AI's ability to facilitate community and to help bring together community that doesn't necessarily already exist. And that, one very specific example of that is language, and just allowing people to speak to one another who might not speak the same language, and that having a really interesting role in virtual worlds. But also affinity groups, the ability to find one another, which does, kind of relate in certain ways to social media, but allows people to get together from maybe, anywhere around the world who have a shared interest in something like, technology and in empowering people with this technology. And I wanted to touch on an organization that I'm a part of, that actually Lewis and Dr. Furness from the earlier conversation are both very active members of, which is the XR Guild, which I think does a really interesting job of working both from the top down and bottom up. I mean, not necessarily in regulation, in that respect, but writing a lot of white papers, having a lot of very influential people in the emerging technology community, both in AI and XR, and, giving public addresses, writing white papers that are influential with think tanks and NGOs. So that, but even the more unique element of this organization being as a, for the masses kind of bottom up group of technologists and people who are actually building a lot of this technology in the industry, working for these companies, where there are, kind of central organized multi-million-dollar, billion-dollar companies that are creating this technology, but the people who are actually building and facilitating this technology on the ground. And the XR Guild has formed a community and is trying to invite people from around the world to participate in this community in a very egalitarian manner. But so, it's not just people at the top who are writing the policies or people at the organizations who are making the decisions, but the actual engineers and people creating the technology and people creating the experiences have a resource and have a community to talk to so that they can be considering these ethical questions. And if they see problems, if they see issues, can be more empowered to step up and, question things and hopefully build this technology with the input of the engineers and not solely top down. So that was just, I wanted to mention that about the XR Guild, because it really is trying to be a resource. We've built a virtual space, everything, I don't think it's launched yet, but we plan to incorporate AI into that space with an AI librarian. So the organization in this library that we're building is going to be a huge collection of resources on ethical, extended reality, and emerging technology, but utilizing AI as a means to match people who go in with questions, who go in with issues, and who go in wanting to learn with very specific content, papers and videos, lectures, classes. They can actually help solve those problems. So that's just another example of artificial intelligence being able to make certain knowledge and content accessible that one could never find on their own.
Yes. And it's really important, though, to make a whole of the technology accessible to those who barely have energy even or power to let alone access to the internet. So these are the things that we need to drive awareness to. And I think we need to educate those who have, so that they can have empathy and compassion and demand extending the reach and access, so that we know each other. But and I'd love to get, we're nearly running out of time. I'm taking the extra 5 minutes that they took from us in the past beginning to have you say. But human machine teaming and is important work that needs to be done in a way that with the right people having a seat at the table, and that everyone has a seat at the table, and that it is not something that is scary or that is reserved for the engineers or the corporates. So it has to be stakeholder centric. And believe it or not, the individual or the data owner was never really considered in the past as as a stakeholder even. So you walking around in the city, you're not the data, even though you're the data subject, you're not the data owner, which we fight that. When your car is watching your every move and deciding if you're happy or mad, or you're good enough to drive, or it should call you in, it's also a lot of invasion to your privacy, as much as it could also save your life. So Liz, I don't want to miss saying your name, Lucy. DC,
Isn't that like life, though? Isn't that like life?
Right. And we need to change
always going to be the pros and the cons.
Yes. And then we have to balance them, and we have to think about the intended, but also mostly the unintended tests. Right. You've been so quiet, and it's my bad. And I'm dying to hear what you have to say. And,
yeah, I mean, as far as like having, I don't like that, the invasion of privacy, and we just have to have rules to balance that out. And, I think we're getting to that point with the social media, where if we don't take action now, we're not going to have those rules, and then it's going to just go off, and everyone's going to just do whatever they want. But yeah, I think there are happy mediums, like Lisi said. They're just things that are going to happen no matter what. I mean, things are already, the stoplight is already reading my every move. It's just, things are already in existence. We can't change those things. Those things are getting data. It, like when I go in an elevator, it goes up and down, and it gives some sort of AI feedback to the hotel chain or whatever. You're just a number, essentially. But we want to give those numbers, or those people, the chance to understand why they're those numbers, not just that you're just another number. We want, and that's kind of, what I want to promote, is to help people understand why those numbers need to happen in order to, make elevators safer, something like that, or make crosswalks more attentive to what's going on around you and their cars, and going towards electric cars and those kind of things, and being able to, the betterment of technology in this space. But I think Debbie has probably some good points as well.
Yeah, thank you, Tess. I think we all have a collective idea of a utopia, egalitarian society that AI can facilitate, because it's kind of a great equalizer. I think we are living in more of an information age. We're literally with YouTube University, anyone can, you know, gather information and create spaces. I firmly believe the idea of the mindset is the key to shifting society. When you shift the mindset, everything shifts. So I absolutely believe that. But being aware makes me realize I'm not just living in a spiritual, psychological world. I'm living in a physical world where I have to outwardly, with my intention and my awareness, you know, affect change through that. That's my goal as an individual and as a collective. And I want to draw a parallel between the esoteric world, you know, take it for what you will, but if you study it a bit, like the nature of reality, reality is always revealing to us that we're living in a simulation anyway.
That's right.
Our bodies are hardwares that are processing EMFs all the time on various biogeometric levels. And if you think about the issue of privacy, let's hypothetically assume that Akashic records are real, right? There's something documenting our world at all times. Whether you believe it or not, at some level, data is always being collected. So as you
Generated. Yes.
generated, collected, this is what we're here for. We are here to do the very thing because we are the original AI. That's my belief.
That's right. And as Polito's point was, it's there's always been data. There's more data, but it's about asking the right questions and then acting on them. I know we are way over time, and we have a hard stop. But I hope that I would just, if you all, I'll leave you, and they're gonna beat me up later for doing this. But like 2 words, if you want, for me, from respect, not fear, as we heard earlier, abundance, not scarcity, and I'm sick of exclusive events to talk about inclusion. So let's really inclusion to mean inclusion. I'm so blessed to have you all here on this panel. You all promised me that we are going to continue to work together in the future. And like in 5 minutes after this, or at the end of the day, may we all gather well. If anybody else has a word to say before our close, please unmute your mic. Otherwise, it's all unmute mics and say, may the gather be well, our gathering be well.
Thank you.